Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Now, normally I've got a couple of co-hosts, Russell Jackman and Mike McDowd, but I think they're both on assignment today. So we're gonna let them go on their assignments, and Edward Brown will be solo. However, I do have a special guest who I will introduce in the next segment, Robert Cochrane, who is doing a documentary series, Boys of Summer, and it's really interesting because it's a hero's journey of love and legacy, and it has to do with his dad, which is going to be really kind of cool to hear his adventures and what was going on with all the various baseball fields. And football season's going to start this week, so that'll be exciting. And in fact, Robert, you know what? Let's introduce you now. Robert Cochrane, welcome to Sports Econ 101. You're shaking your head with football. You excited about the season coming up?
I am. I'm a big three sports guy. I'll watch them across the board. I went to school back in the day to try to be one of the ESPN talking heads back when Dan and the guys were doing it early on. So yeah, I'm a big junkie. So looking forward to this weekend.
But it seems like baseball is probably your first love, isn't it?
Well, what it was it was a growing up point with my dad and a growing up with my hometown, dearly departed Oakland A's, that,
Yeah.
the Coliseum was a place where I found out, what it meant to be a fan at that level. One summer, for example, my best friend and I went to 44 games. And where do you have that type of opportunity? I mean, the cost was low, the opportunity
Yeah.
was high with the BART train, and we sat out in center field and just became characters along with people listening to Bill and Lon call the game. And we dreamed of being them up in the booth.
Gotcha. All right. Tell you what, we are going to cut out here for our first break. When we come back, we're going to reintroduce Robert Cochrane, and he'll explain all about his Boys of Summer, which we are very familiar with the book. All right. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host. My two co-hosts, Russell Jackman and Mike McDowd, are off on assignment, so I am solo. However, I do have a special guest, Robert Cochrane. And Robert, we kind of teased the audience a little bit in the last segment, saying that you were doing kind of a documentary about Boys of Summer. Why don't you go ahead and explain this to us?
So, the title, of course, the famous Roger Kahn book, what that did is put the term into the lexicon, and then Don Henley sings it, and, it's out there. By the time we get around to using it, where our first documentary is 2004, it is the iconic use, not the specific use in that regard. What it is my dad, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2001, and I, in 2004, we road tripped 2 months, 20,000 miles to see a game at each of the 30 major league ballparks together. And it was, this dream that dad had set into motion back when I was a student, like I said, at San Diego State, studying sports journalism. And it was just a kind offer on his part that we thought we'd kind of do a little bit at a time. But after a couple ballparks, it just petered out. Life got busy. After his diagnosis, things get pretty serious, and we watched Field of Dreams, and I bawled my eyes out. And in the context of that, I'm like, I can't, Dad, you can't leave the planet without us finishing this dream. So that's what we did for the first documentary in 2004.
Wow, that is amazing. So 2004 was the year that you guys actually went to all the ballparks?
We did, and right in the middle of it too. Went to Dyersville because the thing was the Field of Dreams. Went there and had a catch right on the field. Played a pickup game. At the time, we were the first documentary to shoot there. I met Don Lansing, the owner of the place, and his wife Becky. They couldn't have been more kind. So the thing was, in 2004, my dad was early onset. You couldn't see much of the Parkinson's progression at that point, and the state of the world, stem cells were all the rage, people saying, we're going to cure this thing within 10 years. So we kind of thought it would be a bump in the road at that time.
Wow. So how you did 30 ballparks within that 1 year, within that season?
2 months. Yeah.
2 months. That's a lot.
20,000 miles. And
if you don't mind me asking, how much did that cost? just for
Well,
fun.
here's the deal. The funny thing, one of my gifts to my dad, as it were, was to say, "I'm going to take care of this," and I put my big foot in my mouth without knowing how. But I said, "What we're going to do is we're going to do this, working with the nonprofit, and let's get donations. Let's make this a community-oriented thing." There was a book by Paul Newman and I think his partner A.E. Hotchner, "Shameless Exploitation for Common Good," and it talked about what a kook he was about getting people out there. The Newman's own brand, right? I was very inspired
Yeah,
by that, and I said, I bet
yeah,
we could get people who want to go to the ball game and support a good cause to come out and support us. So we threw tailgates in every community we could, and we had the backing of what was then the National Parkinson Foundation, now called the Parkinson Foundation, gave us their
okay,
501c3 letter because we weren't that. And
yeah,
that was our introduction to people, and they would donate, tickets, or they would donate, food or whatever, and then we'd
yeah.
repackage that back to the local fans. Say, hey, come, you can get a ticket and some tailgate food for $25 a head, and we'd make just enough to get us to the next park.
Oh, that's
Costco gave us
cool.
gas cards. We were people let us stay in their houses along the way. It was
Oh, that's real.
it was
Well,
quite a community event.
how'd you get the word out?
So, the internet was around, of course, then, but
Yeah,
not nearly what it is now. Social media certainly wasn't what it was. But, we
yeah,
used the public boards to let people know. Message boards were a thing for those of us who are old time internet people. And the A's had just, I think, or I should say, SB Nation had just launched their fan sites, and Athletics Nation was one of the early adopters. So we got the word out that way. And we just spread it across, letting people know. And people were dialing into our, my dad and I would write blogs on a daily basis back then.
okay.
And here's what we're doing, here's where we are. And local media picked up on it. We did some TV in places for sure. And yeah, it wasn't easy. We never like hit that one big donation, and had some bad
Sure.
misses in places too, but it
Well,
worked.
in some cases, you could probably go to two games in a day, like Oakland if they were playing at the same time San Francisco. But usually they wouldn't be playing. That one would be a away game. Um,
Yeah. So you have what? Chicago, New York, the Bay Area, where I think the three big marketplaces for that
yeah.
opportunity. We really wanted to. But when I laid it out, this is again now, I think about 10 years ago, people started putting up ballpark planners, right? This is, a big thing you can do. And they'll help you build your itinerary.
Oh,
I had to
sweet.
print out everybody's schedule, and I laid it out on the floor, and I started like walking. Could I go from here to here? Because you have to be conscious of not wanting to go too many places back and forth. And Montreal was in place back then. So we have, San Diego, Seattle, Miami, and Montreal. And, we did have to circle through the East Coast twice, but started Southwest, excuse me, made it to Southeast, up the Eastern Corridor, and then circled once around the Midwest, back through, and then dropped down and made our way back. So,
That's amazing. I had a client one time who his got well known for playing 50 rounds of golf in 50 days in 50 states.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. And one time
Hmm.
he was able to get he figured out there was this one part like we're Colorado and Utah, wherever he was able to play like 2 or 3 rounds of golf in one day and hit all 3 states because it was within a couple of hours of each other. Kind of
Who
cool.
was that? I think I've heard of that. Who was that? Who did that?
Uh, I want to say, was it Fred Cameron?
And I know that name sounds familiar. I mean, I'm always interested. After you do that, you hear about people doing other things, and you go, "Okay, how did you
Yeah.
do it?" So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
cool.
trying to remember because I had a bunch of different clients, and I don't remember. I think it was him, but I thought I'd have to go back and because this was like in the late 1990s, I think, is what
Cool.
he did.
Yeah,
But then
things were. You're almost more underground back then, right? Because of the internet being smaller at
yeah,
that point, right? And so when you did things, I mean, not that it's cheaper or anything, everything is still a journey, but there's a lot more helpful tools, I'll say now, than there were back then.
yeah. In fact, one of my softball buddies, it's so funny. He was an oral surgeon, and so you'd think he'd be really careful with his body and his hands, but he'd slide into first base. He was a little Looney Tunes on that, but he ended up. He was a big skier, so what he did was he had this brilliant idea to do the most vertical ski miles in a day. What he would do is he'd ski down and then he'd helicopter. He paid for a helicopter to fly him up to the top of the mountain and ski down. And he just kept doing that all day. And he was planning on
Oh my,
breaking the world record, whatever it was. He had the great idea of calling the San Francisco Giants when they were in Candlestick, and he said, "Listen, and he did it. He did the world record, and Sports Illustrated was going to put him not on the cover, but a featured article. And just like you're wearing the A's hat, he was a big Giants fan, so he called the Giants and he said, "How much? What will you give me if I wear my Giants hat for the picture for the photo?" And you ready for this? They said, "We'll give you season tickets for life."
are you
Just
serious?
yeah, and when they got transferred over to AT&T Park, Pac Bell, whatever it's called now, it got transferred over, and they were
Oh
good
my
tickets just for
gosh,
that. I know, I couldn't believe it.
that
And
makes
I
me want
mean,
to make something up.
yeah, I know. And I was thinking, I mean, I couldn't imagine that they do something. I thought, yeah, I'd give them, a few little like tickets to a game or something, but that was
Yeah,
kind of ridiculous. He was very, very fortunate for that one. Okay, we
that's
are
all.
going to come. So we're going to go to our first commercial break here, and we are in the studio with Robert Cochrane, who's talking about the quote "Boys of Summer," which is interesting. I'm looking at your pamphlet, whatever the promotional
The
thing.
posters.
It says third base. Why does it say third base?
Ah,
Okay,
so
well,
you know what?
when we get back, you'll tell us all why it says third base on that. Okay, here's our first trivia question. And if you know the answer, don't say anything quite yet until we get right back and see if you know the answer. How much of the Earth's surface is covered with ice? And we're not talking about the people who take illegal immigrants and put them in the airplanes. We're talking about like ice cubes, ice. All right. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com. The answer to this question: how much of the Earth's surface is covered with ice? Don't touch that dial. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, Robert Cochrane. And question number one: how much of the Earth's surface is covered with ice? What do you think, Robert?
So I'm seeing two numbers flash in my mind, and I don't know if it's because it made me think of a icy. I'm thinking 7-Eleven, so I'm going to pick one of those two. I'm just going to go with 7%.
Actually, it's funny. You're closer with the other one. It's actually 10%.
Is it
10%.
10?
That's
Shit.
pretty good. Very good. I mean, we know the water part is like 70% or something, but just the covered with ice is
Right.
10%. Good. All right. So we were teasing the audience just before we went to break about how your it's not a pamphlet. What would you call it? A promotional piece?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have a flyer, but this is people can see the poster behind me. In the flyer that we send out, right, it says Boys of Summer third base. And as you see here, it's just Boys of Summer, right? The initial. So there's 3 completed films in the documentary series because the unfortunate truth about Parkinson's is there was no cure within 10 years, as we hoped back when we did that. So people asked for a follow-up, and we did in 2014. We made the second film, and progressively it made sense. Let's follow the base path, second base. In 2020, we made our third film, and I figured at that point I was going to make 5 films. So I said, how do I do this? There's 4 bases. We'll just mention shortstop. So that was our third film. And now we're going to be filming our 4th film, and that's going to be on October 3rd out here in the Bay Area in Pleasant Hill, California. On October 3rd, it'll be third base, and it's a very different kind of film because this is going to be like a live, almost keynote concert gone crazy type of presentation. It's going to be a lot of fun.
How long is the movie?
So, the first one ran 90 minutes. The second one ran 90. The third one was a little shorter. Shortstop was, I believe, 53. I'm planning this one to go the full 90. There's plenty to tell. And the plan is to premiere it at the World Parkinson Congress in May 2026 in Phoenix.
How many people do you expect to come to this one on October 3rd?
We've got a 200-seat house, and we'd love to have 201. No, we'll keep it at 199 and make the fire marshal happy.
Yeah.
We've got certainly friends and family. We got local Parkinson's folks, but I want people to know this is really more than Parkinson's. That this
Sure.
is, it's a baseball story. It's a love story between father and son and family.
Yeah.
It is. We're gonna have songs. We're gonna have that'll be silly sing along. We're gonna have games. I might be shooting candy out into the audience. Improvisation stuff. It'll be very interactive. I like to say somewhere between an Adam Sandler concert and a Pee Wee Herman show. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Sweet. Well, the thing that's really touching is I just can imagine how close you and your dad,
Yeah.
your relationship.
Well, Dad was the one who reached out to me in that era. Like I said, when I was an undergrad in college, and we were close, when I was growing up. But that was when he said to me, as a young man, professionally, I hear you, I see you, and I want to help propel you. And to this day, I've never forgotten how big of a deal that was for him to show confidence in me, right? And
Yeah.
his own origin story has that too. His dad showed confidence in him in many ways, and it helped make him the man he is. So that was his gift to me, was to say and do and back those things. So that was my gift back to him in 2004 was, I'm going to give you this trip for us. And I certainly didn't imagine it would continue. I mean, I went back for what I call an accidental PhD degree in 2019, because by that point I'd done so much work in the Parkinson's field. I said, in order to do what I need to do, I need a degree, one doctor told me. And we found a discipline that worked where I was living down in Las Vegas, and I got a PhD. It was not easy, but it's changed the course of what we're doing.
Wow. Is your dad still around?
He is, and he'll be there on October 3rd. I mean,
Wow.
25 years into his diagnosis, look, the reality of Parkinson's is it's rough. Yes, he's wheelchair bound at this point, but does the guy like to have fun? Does he love music? Does he love people? Yeah. And one thing in Parkinson's, people get lost in the disease. They sometimes think they are the disease, which is something we have to fight against, right? And maybe
Wow.
loved ones, people who mean well, even friends, start to disassociate or back off and go, I don't know what to say. And it's like, you know what you say? You say, I love you. You say, hey, you want to play a game of cards? You say, you want to go to the movies? Yeah, some things are more difficult, but that's still a man there. That's still a friend. That's still a loved one who loves engagement. And you know what? On this night, for people to come out and see what he's done and what he's still doing and celebrate. And boy, like I said, with the laughter, we've got some tearjerker moments. It's going to be a great night. I hope people will come.
How old is he?
Dad is 81. So he was diagnosed at 57, which was considered early onset. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have a friend who I think, yeah, she's maybe not even 60. And actually in her case it's not Parkinson's, it's Alzheimer's. That she's been like slowly, they started noticing it on that. What was your favorite baseball park?
So the easy answer there, Dad and I said it at the same time. The first time we got asked, and do ever since, is Fenway. And I know it's cliche, but that place just reeks history. And Dad and I are both, I guess, in that sense, kind of traditionalist fans. We got to see a lot of the newer ballparks in that era, 2004. Camden had set the bar, right, for the new old one. And Camden was great. There were some parks that were less successful with their rebuilds. But I got to say that Fenway, it's not just the park, but the surrounding area. The fans are insane. The architecture of PNC in Pittsburgh, beautiful. And then San Francisco, wonderful. San Diego steals the show if you're going for food. Oh my God, San Diego Petco is
Oh, is
nuts.
that right? Yeah, I
Oh,
heard was it Kansas City's got pretty good food too. I think
they
someone told me that.
do. We
Yeah.
didn't eat a lot inside because their barbecue outside was so good. They threw a tailgate for us at Kaufman.
Well,
And
and some of
Kaufman's
these
an old
places,
traditional.
I mean,
Yeah,
because
it
even
was
like
great.
San Francisco, it's like it gets really expensive. So
Oh my
for the
gosh, yeah. Yeah,
um,
here's the thing.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when you have an inn, it helps you really enjoy what's there. We had one experience in shortstop where the executive chef of Petco invited us to come so I could bring my son to the game because he'd never been, and he had us eat at, I think, 9 different stations in 6 innings. He took us through, paid for it all, and I mean, it was
Wow.
almost gross. It was so good. So yes,
Yeah.
that's a different
Wow.
deal. We paid for that. It would be his college fund.
That's great. And at Fenway, they still do the manual putting up the numbers, don't they?
They do. The Green Monster still has that there. In fact, the year we were there, 2004, was the first year they let you sit on top of the Green Monster. And we got that wonderfully privileged point of view to be up there and look down at the game. You know, we saw it from a couple angles, but God, that was neat to be up on the Green Monster and watch the game from there.
So for regular games, did you get good seats or just go bleacher, or where did you sit generally?
You know, most teams, almost every team was really good about wanting to show off their park, and they were really kind to us and often would give us access. We got into dugouts, we got to meet a few players here and there. Yeah, most teams were great. You know, in 30, they're all busy. It's not like the world's all about us. Some of them were like, yeah, sure, whatever. And, you know, and that's no mark on them. They get pulled in all kinds of directions. So, but for the most part, I mean, I guess the fact that we were in the parks at all, most of them were new to us. I think we had seen probably 5 or 6 of the parks at that point. So to have the bulk of them be new, we were just happy to be in and take in whatever it meant and talk to the local fans was a lot of fun.
Oh, that bad. Yeah, I remember I went to. I had to go to Houston one time, and we took in an Astros game when the Astrodome was there, was still the Astrodome, and so that was kind of cool because I'd never been in a dome stadium, and it was great, because Houston, especially in May, gets a little just a little warm.
Oh, yeah.
I got
Gross.
to think that in 30 games, you must have seen some pretty exciting games. Some of them probably a little boring, but some probably really exciting.
We did. We saw some good games that came down to the end. And, you know, off the top of my head, those don't stick as much as the weird one was in Montreal. It was their last season. And it was
Hmm.
one of those games that was such a blowout between the Mets and the Expos that the Mets throw out their shortstop to start throwing.
Oh yeah.
And you know, we saw the game. I believe it was like 20 to 5 or something like that. It was a weird game. The whole thing. You talk about a weird dome. That was the old Olympic, right? And I mean, it was
Yeah.
just a great. But
Right.
their 5 to 6 thousand fans were very passionate. Those
Yeah.
French Canadians were very sorry to see him go.
I bet. It's interesting you mentioned Fenway. My dad, even though he was a big Brooklyn Dodgers fan because he lived in Brooklyn, he loved Ted Williams. And I don't
Mm.
think he ever got to see him. Well, he never got to go to Fenway. I'm sure he didn't. But also thinking about it, he hated the Yankees. So I don't know if he ever got to actually see Ted Williams play because except for on TV because I mean back then they didn't really have the national play of the American, did they? Till the World
No,
Series.
no. Right. Yeah, you had to have that matchup in order to make it
Yeah.
happen. So,
Yeah.
yeah, a different
So I was kind
era,
of glad in
and
1969 I was a big Mets fan, and that was the first time that they had the Mets play the Cubs to get into the World Series. So that was pretty cool. Hey, well, we're going to go to our second trivia question here. This time we have an animal question. In fact, the next one's an animal question too. Which animals eat with their heads positioned upside down? That's our trivia question. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com the answer to this question. Which animals eat with their heads positioned upside down? All right, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101 with Edward Brown and my special guest, Robert Cochrane. My boys of summer, Mike McDowd and Russell Jackman are off on assignment today, but stay with us. We're talking about the boys of summer, a special tribute with Robert Cochrane for he and his dad. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, along with Robert Cochrane, my special guest. Second trivia question. Which animals eat with their heads positioned upside down? What do you think, Robert?
so I want to make sure I heard you right. Did you say animals is plural? There's more than one?
Well, I'm only looking for one
Okay,
animal.
I've got a good guess at one. How about the sloth?
It's funny. I was thinking about that one, but that's not the answer we were looking for.
Ostrich?
No, that was another good one.
Okay.
And the other one I was thinking of was a bat because they're upside down,
Oh,
but they move that way. No, it's a flamingo
oh,
because
yeah,
they
yeah,
have to
because
give
they
their
get the
strength
strength.
their neck. Yeah, because the way their neck is and all that.
Okay.
All right. So, that other voice you heard, because I'm Edward Brown, is Robert Cochrane. We're talking about the Boys of Summer. It's a hero's journey of love and legacy, where you went to 30. It took you 60 days to go take in 30 ball games with you and your dad. Special thing situation because he was starting to suffer from Alzheimer's, and then you
Parking.
wanted to bring the money ball aspect of this. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the thing is, Dad and I, growing up, he's a municipal bond trader. That's his background and his work, right? So, finance is kind of a large number of our families. I, being on the creative bent, never quite understood. My joke used to be, I don't know what my dad does, but apparently he's the best at it because he's always going to Hawaii for these things.
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah.
So I remember one of my dad's early teaching things was, the early Black Friday, I believe in '87, and the
Yes.
market, crashed at the time. And the joke in his office was, the market's full of fluctuations. Sometimes it flux down, and sometimes it flux up. And he brought to me later on as we tried to kind of get to know each other and understand each other better. We had baseball in the middle of us. Well, lo and behold, Michael Lewis writes this book, Moneyball, right? And
Yeah.
the principle that really helped solidify a lot of interesting conversations for Dad and I was undervalued assets. And seeing that through the prism of baseball helped me
Yeah.
understand and appreciate Dad's world more. And I think it helped him explain more of that to me. And sort of as an homage, that's really what my nonprofit, Yes and Exercise, is built on now. The undervalued assets that are the people who are diagnosed with Parkinson's, who can feel in their own lives disposable or less than because of this, chronic, challenging disease. We rehabilitate those people through storytelling and improvisation and help them rewrite their personal narrative so they can see a new value in who they are and become contributors in their own lives and in their communities in ways. So that principle of undervalued assets is remarkable and landmark in my life.
Oh, is the nonprofit, is that your full-time job now?
It is. I am CEO and founder of Yes and Exercise, and it is yesandexercise.org. And
Okay.
since graduating from the PhD, I made these two intervention programs, tested them during the program. I was like, "What do you want to do with these?" Well, first and foremost, I got to put more testing into them. I thought rather than get a university post right away where I might lose, control of the research. I got to go on my own, and it's been a journey. I'll tell you to do that. However, the results are fantastic. The participants and the way they come in and the way to see their lives transformed. We've just launched a part of our website we call Success Stories, and this is once again the use of storytelling to help people reimagine, reinvigorate, and reclaim their lives. And it's just starting to populate with some of our students. So an exciting thing to check out these stories that people have written.
How old is your nonprofit?
So we're 2.5 years. We launched officially in January of 23. Yeah.
Wow. That's exciting. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned municipal bond broker. When I way back, and when I was doing a lot of tax work, I started my own business, and there were a lot of municipal bond brokers in my building. So I started picking them up as clients to do their tax returns. So I got the and I had my Series 7 securities license, so I kind of we could talk the same language. So I have but it's funny, you don't see too many of those around though anymore.
Of the traders, you mean,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, the municipal bond brokers. I think because they the spread back in the old days there was a 5%
oh,
rule. You couldn't
right.
charge more than 5%. Now, I mean, there's no way you'd even make a living because nobody would pay that. It got down to like 1%. Now it's probably even less than that. And so I've been sort of out of that for quite a while. But yeah, you hear stockbrokers and stuff like that. And even then, you've got Schwab and these robo traders and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a challenge. I've got a friend he's 70, he's still working, and he says it's challenging. Because a lot of the people they
Yeah.
don't want to pay any kind of fees anymore.
I get that. And it's funny. My dad, his greatest success came through relationship building,
Yeah.
right? When he moved out of the corporate structure of what he was doing and into a place where he was basically betting on himself and his relationships more. And the joke from his boss, because again, my dad was so successful with the relationships he built, he said, geez, when anybody farts around this place, Cochrane makes money. So that just told you, he was attached to multiple trades because of the relationships he built. And to me, that's kind of a lovely life lesson again about the value of others, the value of communication and community.
Gotcha. What company did he work for?
So the corporate stuff, he was at Crocker, and then he was at Bank of America, and then he was at a
Oh,
place called First California, all in San Francisco.
okay. Interesting. I was just kind of curious because
He retired early.
yeah, well, probably because of Parkinson's, right?
Partially, but you know what? He did well. God bless him. And his goal was to get done by 50. And he worked on his own,
Yeah.
and worked again through these relationships. But he really wanted to play a lot of golf, and he did.
Well,
So
that's the next thing. Next at baseball. Well, of course, he's in a wheelchair now, so it's a little harder to play golf. Um,
yeah.
but back in 2004, he wasn't in the wheelchair, so you're able to go to the games. Gotcha.
That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah. Very ambulatory at that time. I mean, and this is a problem for some people with Parkinson's, people saying, do you really have it? And it's such an unfair thing, because Parkinson's is not just about the motor symptoms. That's a really important thing to understand, that the psychosocial emotional part of it is as much, if not more, of what's going on. And that's a large part of what we're trying to do is get that understanding out into the community.
I was gonna say, yeah, educating the public is so important in that. I was just for some reason thinking, did you have any like challenges going to all these ballparks? I'm thinking, what if you went to a game and it got rained out? Did that happen?
Great question. So we put that out there early on because the schedule was so tight, and my mom was she's like, she wasn't happy about him being gone for this period because that was the longest they'd been apart. And she did come and flew in and joined us a couple times,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, basically I got a 2-month loan on my dad, like a library book, and yeah, if along this path, because the dates are set to when they're going to be in town as well, we did get rained out, we'd be sunk. Now we ran to rain in Atlanta, but they were 7 innings in and they were able to finish the game. And I think we had a few sprinkles here and there, some pregame stuff, but I lucked out, frankly, that we didn't get rained out, completely. At least at that time. I mean, in other games, we kind of did other stuff we did, but not during that summer.
Okay. And I guess you have to kind of bring all kinds of different clothes with you because you never know if it's gonna be hot or cold or, did you go to day and night games? I
We
guess you'd
sure
have to,
did.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. It's their choice, dealer's choice, not ours, right? So we went to both, and there weren't a lot of super cold games, but we did camp a fair amount because that was something to save money, but also to see the country in interesting ways. It was
Yeah.
fun to camp out in places, and as a matter of fact, Cincinnati, they have a campground right next to their theme park, the Kings Island theme park, and we finagled our way in to say, hey, we're doing this thing, can we ride the roller coaster? And they let us in just to ride the roller coaster and put it in the movie because the
Sweet.
roller coaster metaphor played. So yeah, we talked our way into stuff sometimes.
Um, Dan, I guess you flew everywhere, didn't you? Yeah.
So no, you mean in this trip, did we fly?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or take
this was all driving, all driving.
all driving. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we averaged 350 miles a day on the
Oh,
road.
wow.
And Dad growing up made road trips a very big part of who we were as a family. So to me,
Okay.
it was a blast because that was also a great way to get to know each other even better,
Sure.
right? Listened
Yeah.
to a lot of great music, heard some stories about things that, had never heard before. And just, yeah, I mean, it was very generous of him.
Wow. That's so sweet. Did you guys like the same music?
So, growing up, I'd say no. I did. I always liked his music. I would say in the
Oh,
'80s, I became a big hip hop fan, and Dad didn't know what to do with that. So,
yeah.
but I never lost my love of Dad's really '50s and '60s rock and roll, Motown, that type of thing. And then later on, he loved his Willie and Waylon, the country artists,
Oh,
especially
okay.
of the '70s and '80s.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of stuff. Hey, you can always get together over the Beatles, right? Everyone likes the Beatles.
Sure.
But yeah,
Well, but you guys,
I
you guys had
introduced.
You got a different era because I'm 65, so
Yeah,
I'm 65, so I'm probably in between the two of you.
yeah.
So I think I made my audience maybe say, wait a minute, I've heard this story before, but uh, when I was a kid, my dad, because he was born in 1927, he liked
Ooh.
Sting and Glenn Miller type of stuff, right? And if we go to the store together, he turned that on. I didn't really care for it, and so if he had to go into the store, I turned to rock and roll, right? And he'd come out and he'd hear the rock and roll and he'd go, turn that crap off, right? So we'd have to turn back to that. So the funny thing is because he also liked jazz and that sort of thing. So when my son played, my son was a drummer, and we'd be listening to rock and roll, right? And I'd go out to do something. He would turn it to jazz. And I'd come
Uh,
back and I go, turn that crap off. So, yeah, unfortunately,
you're
never
not
met
your
my
grandfather.
would have gotten together really well.
That's funny. Yeah, music has ways of tying us together and also driving us apart if we don't like the style.
Well, no, I definitely would like your dad and I would get along very well with the music because I
I think
loved
so.
Motown and then of course the Beatles and all that kind of and the British Invasion. That
Yeah,
was always
yeah.
kind of cool. Love
Oh
that.
yeah, he liked it
Uh,
all. Became a parrot head later in life. He loved Jimmy Buffett. I mean, yeah,
oh,
these are all his things.
well, he definitely sounded like he had a wide array,
Yeah,
of like music. So that's kind of fun.
he likes
Um,
live music. Yeah,
he likes what?
he likes live music. And my sister
Right.
is actually a player. She's a dueling pianist, and so watching
Oh,
her play is like his all-time favorite. So he likes the atmosphere of live music and people getting up and going. He tells the story of seeing Elvis, and yeah,
oh wow, that's great. In fact, my earliest memory is when the Beatles came on Ed Sullivan, 1964. I remember it was the talk of the town. All right, here's our third trivia question. What type of bird can do math as well as a monkey?
Mhm.
What type of bird can do math as well as a monkey? All right, audience, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be back with some closing comments and thoughts for the day. I do have a quick joke here, though. I told my wife she drew her eyebrows too high. She seemed surprised. All right, audience, don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, Robert Cochrane. Third trivia question. What type of bird can do math as well as a monkey? What do you think?
I'm going to take a guess. My aunt has one of these. Is it an African gray parrot by chance?
Yeah, I would have thought it was a parrot also. No, it's a pigeon.
Pigeon.
I guess that's what like homing pigeons and stuff like that.
Wow. Well, there you go.
Yeah,
Okay. Give
interesting.
it up for Mike
So,
Tyson.
Robert, yeah, Robert, go ahead and plug your October 3rd event.
Yeah.
Is there a book out also, or is it just strictly film?
So yeah, the book is regarding my PhD program. It's called Acceptance, and it deals a
Okay.
lot with my dad's and my journey, a hero's journey through Parkinson's and a PhD. That's available on Amazon or via our
Okay.
website. So Acceptance, and you can find that.
Right.
The movie is playing on October 3rd. It's like I say, playing. It's going to be a live event. We're actually be filming, so you're not just watching what we're doing. You're going to be part of it. This very special, fun, interactive presentation, October 3rd in Pleasant Hill, California. The information is on our website, bosmovie.com, has all of the Boys of Summer stuff, bosmovie.com.
And your website is at yesandexercise.com?
So at yesandexercise.org
Yes,
is the nonprofit.
or is it a
Org,
nonprofit?
being a
Org.
nonprofit, and they're linked to each other as well. So if you get to one, you can get to
Perfect.
the other.
Okay, and if you're ready for here's our thoughts of the day. So, do twins ever realize that one of them was unplanned? Didn't realize that. Okay, and 100 years ago, everyone had a horse, and only the rich had a car. Today, everyone has a car, and only the rich have horses.
There you go.
All right, audience, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective, asking more trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week. So long.